Hello there YouTube, it's Mad Max MTG back with another quick Magic Arena video, and as you can see on the screen today we're going to be talking about another great spoiler from War of the Spark. It's Cruel Celebrant. It's 1 black, 1 white for a 1/2 vampire. It's uncommon, and when Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So if you've been playing Magic for a while, this is going to remind you of a couple cards. Let's take a look at them. So right away, this reminded me of Zulaport Cutthroat. Similar casting cost, practically the same ability, a little bit more toughness. And if you were playing when in Battle for Zendikar when Zulaport Cutthroat came out, people were speculating, was it going to bring the Aristocrats style deck back? And it absolutely did bring it back. LSV played at a tournament, it did great, and this card, Cruel Celebrant, is going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to bring, for those of you that don't know what Aristocrats is, basically you want to flood the board with tokens or have some type of constant token maker, and then you want to have some sacrifice effects or some way to kill your own creatures, and you want to have like maybe 2 or 3 Cruel Celebrants on the board, and it doesn't matter if you attack or not. You basically have an alternate win condition where you're killing your own creatures to get some other benefit from sacrifice, and you're pinging your opponent while you're gaining life, and you can just ping them to death. You usually with cards like this, enough sacrifice effects. If you've been playing Magic for a really long time, this is going to remind you of Blood Artist. Again, basically it's the same ability, but Cruel Celebrant has more power, toughness. So I've gathered some cards in Standard here that I think is going to work well with Cruel Celebrant. But before we get into that, let's take a look at other cards from the spoiler. These cards they've spoiled so far that might interact well with Cruel Celebrant. First, let's look at a token maker. So Dreadhorde Invasion, 2 casting cost. Every turn you get to create a 1/1 or put a 1/1 counter on a army token. But basically what you want to do is you want to create a token every turn, and you want to find a way to sacrifice it so you can get Cruel Celebrant's ability to trigger. And one of the best ways so far, at least with what they've revealed, is Ob Nixilis. So Ob Nixilis, his static ability, whenever opponent draws a card, yeah, we're not using that ability. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in is -2, destroy target creature. Its controller draws 2 cards. So if you're making a token every turn, you can also draw 2 cards by sacrificing it to Ob Nixilis. Then you get the trigger off Cruel Celebrant. Okay? Now what if you have Liliana on the field? With her +1, you can create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. With her static ability, when a creature you control dies, you draw a card. So again, create a token, stack it to Ob Nixilis, draw 2 cards. Liliana's static ability triggers, you draw another card, so you're drawing 3 cards. And you're dealing 1 damage to the opponent, and you're gaining 1 life. So I mean, imagine what you can do with 3 cards a turn, and you're not even swinging at your opponent. So that's kind of Magic Christmas Land, right? You gotta have 2 planeswalkers on the field, an enchantment, and then this creature. But these type of decks work. They work because you can play multiples of this creature. They also work because you can play other creatures that have similar effect. One to consider would be Poison Tip Archer. It's a little more casting cost, a little more power toughness. Another one you might want to consider would be Vindictive Vampire. Same effect. Higher casting cost, higher power toughness. If you were going to go the Saproling route, you could do Slimefoot the Stowaway. So with all these cards, the Poison Tip Archer, Vindictive Vampire, Slimefoot the Stowaway, when your creatures die, you're doing damage to them and you're gaining life. Well, except for Poison Tip Archer, you're not gaining life there, but you are with the Vampire, and you are with the Stowaway if you play Saprolings. So let's look at some cards that would interact well with this. I think there's a couple ways you could go. You could go Abzan, so white, green, black, or you could go Mardu, white, red, black. So first let's look at Abzan, and just in no real order, I'm just going to kind of look at some of these cards. We've already seen the Poison Tip Archer, Stowaway. Let's say if you were going to go the Stowaway route, you want Saproling Migration and Spore Swarm. So two great ways to make tokens, sapling tokens. You might also want Tindershoot Dryad, which I haven't put in here, but that's another way to get a lot of tokens on there. Let's see, Tristani Discordant. 5 for a 1/4. It gives all your creatures +1/+1. It also creates two 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. So that's another way to flood the board with tokens. You could do, again, in Abzan, Call to the Feast would be good. Rite of Belzenlock, that's an interesting card. Even when your cleric creature tokens die or you have to sacrifice them to your demon on the third step of this saga, you're still going to trigger the Celebrant. That might be a good card to put in there. March of the Multitudes, obviously, you can pump out a lot of 1/1 lifelink soldier tokens. That would be great in there. History of Benalia, Queen's Commission, Legion's Landing. If you want to go more into the afterlife type ability, do Tithe Taker, Orzhov Enforcer. We'll come back to the Priest in a second. Imperious Oligarch. Pitiless Pontiff might be interesting. Could sack a token, make it indestructible, so it could survive a board wipe maybe. Seraph of the Scales is a good afterlife creature. So you can see there's a multitude of ways that you can build this just inside white, green, and black. So there's a lot of combinations of cards you can put together. Let's take a look at what if you went Mardu. So what if you went white, red, black? You got the Fireblade Artist. Every turn you could sack a token to the artist, do 2 damage to the opponent. If you have Cruel Celebrant on the field, they're going to take another damage, and you're going to gain their life. If you have like the Vampire on the field, you're going to do another damage, and you're going to gain their life. So in that scenario where you have Vindictive Vampire and a Cruel Celebrant and a Fireblade Artist, say you sack a Goblin token, they're going to take 4 damage. You're going to gain 2 life. And if you can do that every turn, you're going to wrap up the game really fast. Some other cards in Mardu, Legion War Boss. It's going to pump out a Goblin every turn. Judith the Scourge Diva. That's good to pump up all your tokens. You can also get some additional damage triggers off your non-token creatures when they die. Rekindling Phoenix is a fun card because when the Phoenix dies, if they kill it with the Lightning Strike, then you're going to get the trigger off of a Cruel Celebrant. And then when your token dies, when you have to sacrifice your Phoenix's token to get the Phoenix back, you'll get an additional trigger off the Cruel Celebrant. If you go heavy into vampires, you play your Legion Lieutenant, your Call of the Feast, your Queen's Commission, and your Sanctum Seeker. And let's say you have a Sanctum Seeker or a Cruel Celebrant out, you have 4 vampire tokens, you attack with those tokens, your opponent's going to lose 4 life, you're going to gain 4 life from the Sanctum Seeker's ability, and when those tokens die, your opponent's going to lose 1 life for each token, and you're going to gain 1 life. So in that scenario, you can do 8 points of damage to your opponent, gain 8 life, and you don't even have to get through with any of your tokens. They could just all die. And that's the power of this type of strategy. The other real advantage to playing a strategy like this is even if they do a board wipe like a Cleansing Nova or Deafening Clarion, and you have a Cruel Celebrant out, you're still going to get those triggers when your creatures die. So in some cases, if you got your opponent already low on life, they might not be able to blow up the board because they're going to take a lot of damage from your Cruel Celebrant triggers. And keep in mind, if you have 2 or 3 Celebrants on the field, all those triggers stack, so the damage can get really out of hand. That's just my initial thoughts around it. This is kind of like a rough sketch. This is where I start with the deck. I have to wait and see what else is revealed in War of the Spark. I'm sure we're going to have more token makers, more army cards, more sacrifice outlets. But this is to me, this is a really exciting card. I'm a casual player. I love janky brews. I love kind of kitchen table magic. And to me, the Planeswalkers are exciting. But this type of card to me is really what I'm excited about. Another good thing with decks like this, you can see this is uncommon. If you go into here and look at a lot of these cards, they're uncommon. Not those, but a lot of them are uncommon. And some of them even are common. And so decks like this are going to be pretty cheap to build. You could probably put together a pretty good budget deck, which is your Saproling cards, your Slime Foots, your Celebrants, and maybe a Vampire. And there you've got a core of a pretty solid budget deck there. So just my initial thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if I left out any cards, any token makers, sacrifice outlets that you would put in there. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you actually like it. I'm just getting started, so I really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time.